Welcome back to Palma in Mallorca, to Puerto specifically for the 52 Super Series. We're coming into the last race of the day. We've done two so far. Conditions holding up, henceforth we're making the best possible use of the conditions. We're going to go out on the water, hopefully enjoying Jenny Tulloch. I've got Nick Baird with me. We're going into the last race. Jenny, how's it looking?
It is gorgeous again for this third race, the final race of today, the penultimate day of the regatta. Not quite as much breeze at the start as we had at the last race, probably just about 10, 11 knots, but we have got almost a similar stack up, a lineup here of boats towards the boat end of the line with just 1 minute to go now. You can actually hear the horn right now. That's the 1 minute horn. But I think some of the teams have learned their lessons. We've had boats shut out at the boat end earlier on, Brunelesec specifically, winning the boat end kind of in the first start, and then being 3 seconds late at the last start. They've now chosen to be the penmost boat on the line, just above Brunelesec. The current regatta leaders, Prevetsa, fighting hard for that middle. In fact, they're tacking back right now. Allegre just on their stern, pushing Prevetsa towards the line. In fact, Prevetsa might be in a problematic scenario here. They might be over early if Allegre continues to push them forward there. Above Allegre, we've got Platoon, Quantum racing up the line, Sled just after them, and then just off the stern of us here on the camera boat as the Italian team, 20 seconds to go, bearing away, trying to get a hole at the boat end of the line. Ron Racing, though, I think closing the door on Azura. Ron Racing very much so, almost stuck head to wind here as we got 8 seconds to go. Down the line, 6 seconds, 5, 4, and I do think Prevetsa looking very, very dangerously close to the line. 1, that's the gun. I'm going to guess that's Prevetsa over early. We'll have to hear and wait. Yep, there's an individual flag.
Every time.
Individual recalls, bow 5 and bow 9.
So that was bows 5 and 9. I think Prevetsa is one of them. I'm not quite sure which one is bow 5. Azura has started at the boat here. Tacked out a great almost photo start as what they did last time starting at the boat. Accelerating well. Bow 5 and 9 is what I thought she said, but it's bow 6 and 9 that have gone back to the starting line. Sled, Prevetsa. So that's problematic for guys who are at the top of the leaderboard now, and I think Sled sitting third. Problematic for both of those two teams. Here comes bow 5, Brunelesec, coming back now as well. So they were both the two boats at the pin end of the line, Brunelesec and Prevetsa. They were both the two boats over, and I think unfortunately for Sled, they just accidentally went back as well. So in the middle, probably with the lead, Quantum Racing, whereas on the right, Azura also looking good to me. Andy.
Indeed, Nick. Brunelesec seemed to be going quite well in that right corner. Allegre out in the left once again as they did previously. Quantum not so bad.
Yeah, Allegre working it out and getting sort of saved by Brunelesec coming back to the starting line. They looked like they were in a tough spot off the line, but definitely with those boats that were over coming back, helped them out a little bit. But no, so Prevetsa, Sled, and Brunelesec all over the line. Well, Sled maybe not, but coming back early. Definitely not a great way to start, but also definitely doesn't count them out of the race. We've seen some pretty great comebacks in the last 3 races of this event, so don't count those guys out yet for sure. There will be places for them to set up and have nice lanes out to that right side at some point and be able to get right back into the race as we've seen before. But definitely Quantum out there in a great spot right now. Definitely going to be happy with that after the last couple of races. We've had a tough day so far, but a great start for them now. Especially with Platoon and Azura a little bit behind them. They're going to be happy with that for the overall series.
Seems like Quantum just a little bit of a lefty relative to Azura. Azura in the just ahead of a Gladiator. Nice breeze now, Jen.
Really good, solid breeze. And again, as Nick was saying, you can't count out anyone who started off the line badly. I mean, Azura here, the boat I'm seeing coming out to the right-hand side, they were last race, we kept calling them second or third row. They were so far behind, no one really knew what happened, and that they got up to podium finish, I think finished third in that race. So you cannot count out Brunelesec or Sled or Prevetsa, but it looks like right now Prevetsa just doing some penalty track. I'm not sure where that came from. I don't know if you guys can see back in the track maybe who they might have fouled.
Yeah, I'm not sure. The virtual eye seems to be a little bit glitched right now, but it could be a number of things. Could be that they just luffed a little bit too hard, but we could look at the replay really quick and see if we can figure out what happened.
So look at the replay now. Nick.
Yeah, so what I'm guessing is that they either got a little bit too close to Brunelesec down there to lured or luffed up Allegre too hard, or they could have fouled by coming back. You have no rights coming back to the starting line, so if they were over here at the line, then as they come back, they have to stay clear of all the other boats. So any combination of those things, but it looks like right there, getting a little bit too close to Brunelesec down, as they try to not be over the line. That it seems like that's where
like
the
the
foul is
Allegri,
going to be. Maybe actually fouling a little bit on
Allegri.
The red boat below there looks like Platoon. So I think either fouling just a windward leeward on Platoon or Brennanasek is where that penalty turn is going to be for them. So definitely not a great way for them to start the race, especially after winning the last one.
So to me now it looks like Azura perhaps pulling into a small lead over Quantum Racing. I'm not sure what Virtual Eye is telling you guys. They're definitely stretching their legs out on the right side here, whereas Gladiator just behind Azura is having to sail a really high mode, trying to stay out on this right side, not have to tack off, especially because they're being held out here by Ron Racing just to windward of Gladiator. So Gladiator in a really tough spot in Azura's line with Ron to weather. They don't really have a lot of options. They've got to just stick in, while Quantum in the middle in a very clear open spot. For the first time, really, Quantum's had a good start. I can't remember a single other race in this regatta that they've gotten off the line really cleanly, and we've been talking about them this early on, but Quantum looking really good from the middle, and just up from them, I think another good start for Platoon.
Yeah, interesting to see those three boats again sort of in the same pack. The last couple races they've been sort of back in the fleet a little bit. They've been messing around with each other on the starts, but this time they all seem to separate and just sort of squeaked out there. Now all of them are in front, so definitely going with some good pace on the upwind, those three boats. Platoon, we've seen them be fast all day today and all day yesterday as well. Azura have been a little bit more up and down, but generally have the speed on, and Quantum definitely putting some confidence back into their boat speed and their boat handling for this race. So those boats look like they'll be the top three coming into the rest of this upwind. We'll see what happens with the breeze, but for sure, nice little punch off the start there, and Azura liking that right side, Quantum having the best start, and Platoon hoping that little bit of less shear that happened in the first bit of the last two races is going to come and help them a little bit here. So for sure, Gladiator falling into Azura a little bit. They are in a tough spot. Ran Racing, it looks on the Virtual Eye, Ran's been just getting a little bit more bow out, so it's going to put them even in a tougher spot, especially if they really do want that right side. So going to be a tough call for that boat, whether they stay on port tack there for as long as they can. But it looks like they're in a pretty good lefty on the Virtual Eye, so we'll expect them to stay on port for as long as they possibly can. But nice for them to have a little bit of a gap between them and the guys that were all over there with Sled, Brennanasek, and Profetza out taking the risk that's necessary on the left side to get some clear air after the starts that they had.
Seems like Azura just a little bit bound down on the extreme right.
Yeah, I think maybe Nick mentioned it in the last race that they sail with a little bit of a twistier setup, and they might just be happy to push out to this right-hand side. It looks like they were fighting hard for a high lane early. They were really hurting Gladiator and kind of trying to work up to Ron's line earlier, and then now they've suddenly just kind of gone foot down, pedal out recently, and I think maybe they've just it does look, as we look up the course, it does look like there's better pressure out here on the right. I think maybe they've seen that they've made some early gains already, so they're happy to just continue out a bit further and actually not worry about going too high anymore and just try to make the biggest gain to be perhaps the biggest lead if they can lead from Quantum up the course.
Yeah, definitely bow down mode is going to mean that they are either getting headed, but I think that's more likely that they just don't really think that it's worth trying to go high mode here, and they just need to get as much leverage on Quantum as they can to see if they can get around in front when they tack all onto starboard. But looks like on the Virtual Eye, the Platoon's actually squeaking ahead a little bit here. So we saw this in the last two races as well, with a little bit of left shift and maybe a little bit more pressure down there at the bottom. But then we slowly saw the right boats start to gain, and the boats that were in the same position as whereas Azura is now ended up being the top ones to the mark. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes. I think I really like where Quantum is. I think that Platoon's going to get into that righty and not quite be in the lead anymore. But Quantum certainly punched out on Azura, so my expectation is that Quantum will end up lee bowing or just crossing Azura when they all get to the right side of the racecourse here.
I think probably Azura setting to tack up soon. We just saw their runner's trimmer just run down and set at the leeward runner, put the extra wraps on, and put the winch handle in. So maybe that was just the one lull that they were that they were able to allow a body to go down. I mean, they're so slick in their maneuvers, and they've attributed a lot of their wins to just really good boat speed upwind. At least that's what Vasco Vascoda said the other day. So I think perhaps that was it, just a small lull. Okay, one body can go down if you need to do something, and it doesn't look like they are tucking. It looks like that's all it was.
Yeah, they're definitely going quick. I don't think they're going to attack it until they think they can come pretty close to Quantum there. They're probably going to stick it out. They definitely like that right side. There's a reason that they are out there so far and that they attacked right away off that starting line. But Gladiator looks like they've gained quite a bit on Rand, starts to affect their breeze. Maybe Quantum actually rolling over the top almost, just making it a little harder for Rand to live there. So Gladiator surviving pretty well off of Azura's hip. It looked like they were in a, not a great spot there for a while. Definitely hurting behind Azura, but squeaking out in front. So, well, Virtual Eye now has Azura in front of Quantum and Platoon. Is that what you're seeing out there, Jen? It looks like Platoon's definitely dropping back, but Quantum and Azura are very even right now.
Yeah, I think so as well. I was just thinking, no offense to Gladiator, but I almost wonder if Azura, they were really hurting them earlier. They were in pinch mode, and they were actually affecting Gladiator, who was stuck out there with Rand. And I wonder if they went, okay, well, we could go foot mode, we could let these guys live a little bit, and maybe allow them this, as we're seeing now, this setup, which forced the boat, who was much closer to them on the overall scores, to be shoved out the back of the pack. That's Run Racing now just getting shoved out behind Gladiator. I don't know if Azura was really thinking that far ahead when they went into foot mode earlier. I mean, that would have been a really sneaky maneuver if they were, but I like it if they were thinking that far. I do think they've pulled out recently over Quantum. Again, they're just getting, they've just come bow down, by 5 degrees right then, so they're rolling into attack. This was just the very beginnings of a right shift, but I think that was finally enough for them to say, okay, that's it, let's go. It wasn't them coming bow down. It was definitely a shift.
Yeah, you can see on the virtual at the first third of that upwind, you get the nice left shear and a little bit of pressure, a little bit of lift on port tack there, and then slowly losing to the right side, and all those boats getting headed. So like we said, Azura coming back, going to be a close cross between them and Quantum. Gladiator and Rand electing to go beneath Azura. We definitely saw boats that are doing what Gladiator and Rand are doing now, continuing to go farther right. We saw them gain quite a bit in the last couple of races, but so it'll be interesting to see if Azura still likes that right side, make Quantum tack here, and just get right back on the port tack and keep going out to the right side, let Quantum and Platoon fight it out a little bit there. So interesting of Gladiator's attack here. They've definitely gotten ahead of Rand, but maybe they're getting close to ley line, but I thought that for sure they would continue to go a little bit farther right, as that has been working for the last couple of races, but maybe a little bit more of a conservative move there, hoping that Legre will cross them, maybe, and just go over in front of Rand Racing and make it hard for them, get a little bit under the fleet and not have to fight for those positions up on the starboard ley line. But I don't know. What do you think out there, Jen? Are they close to ley line?
Well, up at the top of the pack, Azura had come in on that righty. Quantum did just lee bow them, and I think probably it was a decent solid lee bow. Azura only overlapped with, say, the helmsman on board Quantum. So Azura has gone back out for a little clearing tack here and just has come up to Ron Racing's line. So everyone now out here on starboard tack. It is a long way to go to the top marks, and it is, as we've seen almost every time, a little bit right shifted here up near the top. So we do expect them to do this tack early and then get lifted towards the ley lines. I'm not quite sure if Quantum will be able to pull that off or if they'll come back with a little hitch onto Azura later. For now, I think Quantum can just sit and see how it plays out. I think Platoon, again, Kostecki being conservative there, underneath everyone, definitely underneath ley line. He'll pick his moment when to come back into the fray, and we'll see if that makes him gain, at least against Ron Racing. Possibly they will. Ron Racing just crossing in front of Allegre now. Allegre is going to continue even further out, so Allegre doesn't think they're ley line, that's for sure.
Yeah, maybe Allegre going to attack right away. They might not have wanted to put in a lee bow there just because they might still be affected a little bit by Azura, and it wouldn't have been the best place for them, but they definitely seem to be getting close to the ley line. Quantum probably just a little bit underneath. Azura probably nailing it pretty close, or Rand maybe right there on ley line. So going to be a tough spot for Gladiator there with Azura taking that hitch, tacking up above them. If they do decide to go into that low mode that we saw earlier in this leg, then it could be very difficult for Gladiator to live there. So if you see that low mode, then you might think Gladiator might try to take that hitch up and put it in front of Rand Racing there. If they think that they're going to be able to live there, then they might stay, see if they can lay. If not, get a little bit of a lefty and gain. But definitely Platoon in an interesting spot here, low. We haven't seen that work yet. With the low boats, only for one boat, which was Brennensek, but that was quite a bit of risk for them, and just were able to sneak in there at the top, coming out of the left side. So here goes Gladiator attacking. They'll be really happy if they can get in a lead bow and ram, but I'm not sure they'll be able to get to full speed by then. We'll see. It looks like they actually are pretty high on port, so they might be able to get there. But yeah, again, Platoon out there on the left side. Going to be interesting to see if they can make that work. Again, hasn't worked in the past, but maybe a little bit of a fight up towards the ley line, boats pinching each other off and stuff will let them get a little bit ahead on the in some meters there and get into the top mark there. So Gladiator actually able to tack in front of Ran there, so that's going to be really good position for them. Ran electing to do the double tack again, probably close to ley line for them, or they would have extended a little bit farther, but they just went to full speed or close to full speed, tacked back. Smart move by them. If they had stayed behind Gladiator, they might have lost a little bit of distance to Allegre and gotten rolled there. So it's definitely a conservative move aboard Ran right there, and they're going to be coming in hot to that windward mark and closing the distance a little bit, maybe trying to roll over Allegre even.
So things looking quite good for Quantum Racing just now. We've got a quick question coming in from Daniel Dean on Twitter, who's asking, how is the course distance determined? Well, it's determined by the wind speed, and in general we have the races, duration of the races is around about 1 hour. It's about 15 minutes per leg, give or take. And the leg distances are between maybe 1.6, 1.7 miles up to 2.2 miles, depending on the wind strength. Obviously 1.6, 1.7 for a very, very light race, and 2.1 miles, 2.2 miles when we're in 18, 20 knots, something like that.
Yeah, so it's interesting with the course sets, the boats go a little bit faster as the breeze gets up, so you lengthen the course a little bit. But as the breeze gets up as well, the boats go significantly faster downwind. The speeds increase much faster than they do upwind, so as the breeze does get a little bit windier, then the upwinds tend to last longer than the downwinds do, so the strategy changes just a little bit there.
And the key thing is to keep it safe, so the course is long enough so that there's some separation between the boats at the top mark. So looking at Quantum Racing then, coming back across to the starboard ley line.
Yeah, so Quantum deciding they weren't on ley line there, attacking what looks like in front of Gladiator there. Might see, I'm not sure, the angles are not great for us, but if Gladiator is affected, then they'll attack. Oh, actually, it looks like Allegre was the one that they tacked on, so there they go. Attacking away, going to duck behind Ran Racing and probably tack right away. Gladiator also seeing a little bit of that bad air. You'll see them tack up and just probably put their boat right in front of Ran to keep them from being able to pass them even more. So a little bit of a left shift. I think a lot of those guys thought they tacked on ley line, but we're looking at the virtual eye and seeing them get a left header. So we might actually see Platoon make a good gain by staying on starboard for a while, as you see those tracks on virtual eyes slowly trending towards the left. Platoon tacking now, coming in there. Let's see if they make the gain. Looks like they're definitely going to be ahead of Gladiator. So still in the same spot for them, but took a little bit of a risk to do that. Definitely Azura going to be getting rolled by Quantum pretty soon. So might see them try to tack in front of Platoon if they can clear the stern of Quantum. If not, Platoon's going to be in a really, really great spot to put the pressure on Azura around this mark.
Yeah, you've got that right. As they come into the top marks here, it is still Quantum Racing. The driver this week, the owner, Doug DeVos, he also drove last event in Puerto, but they only have a very slim, about 1/4 boat length lead over Azura. The Italian team's Quantum Racing rounding the top mark, now in first place. Their first place, I think, their first place of this regatta.
That's right.
Just behind them, Azura just actually having to kind of luff a little bit around that top mark, in fact. So Quantum Racing probably extending their lead from what was just a 1/4 boat length. Now it'll be more like half a boat length, even a full one, depending on how slow Azura got around that mark. And then very close behind Platoon. They did have a great top third of the beat there. They were able to consolidate from that left-hand side and be able to use that last-minute left shift to go from what might have been fighting for about 5th or 6th to a 3rd position here. Great job for John Kostecki there. In 4th place, Gladiator tactician Ed Baird, who Nick Baird in the studio is quite familiar with. Ed in the red shirts, Gladiator coming around, while Sled just tacks in from the left behind them as well. So Sled going to be in 5th position here. A great move up the race course as well, I think, for Sled, using that last left side as well as Platoon had done. Just behind Sled, bow number 3, Ron Racing. who had been leading going into today, who are still close to the top of the leaderboard. They are going to be 6th. And in 7th place, Allegre, the gray boat, bow 19, just rounding now. One of the boats that was close to the line, although I don't think they were actually over early. The sled, if you recall, bow number 6, they had gone back accidentally, so they've made a huge comeback here. Whereas in the last place, the last 2 boats, Bernenesek, bow number 5, the blue boat, and in the last place, the current overall leaders, the white boat, bow number 9. Those were the 2 boats that were called over early at the line. They both had to go back. Bernenesek then able to get ahead of Preveza because Preveza had to do a penalty turn on that upwind. So really tough battling back there. But as we said, Sled's already made 4 places back. I'm sure those guys can come back from it. Everybody going downwind now with kites up. 2 boats have jibed already. Azura has jibed out very early on, just at the offset mark, and Quantum Racing, who were leading, they jibed about 10 boat lengths later on. Gladiator also jibing on the inside.
Surprised to see a lot of these boats jibing. It looked like they came in with a pretty big left shift. You'd expect them to stay on starboard jibe, just headed jibe downwind, taking them a little closer to the mark. So they must still like that right side. That left shift must have been more of a temporary thing. But definitely making some good gains in the top left for a lot of boats. Sled coming in late there. Platoon gaining a little bit of distance on Gladiator from that left side there at the end of the leg. So I'm surprised to see that. That's not what we've seen in the last 2 races. So maybe something changing out there, Jen. What do you think?
Well, I'm not sure if what we thought was a left gain or a left shift was actually just the boats that got to sail straight and not have to do all those little tacks. When they got tacked on, someone else, they sent each other out. I think that fight that they all have on the starboard ley line, the fight that Platoon had, that Sled had, that even Gladiator and Allegre had, they all kind of kept facing each other out on that right side. And Platoon was just able to sail straight on starboard, do 1 tack in when they wanted to at the top of the beat. And I think perhaps that's what to us ultimately looked to be a good left shift. I think was actually just Platoon sailing straight, not having to do those extra 4 or even 6 or in some cases 8 tacks that a lot of the other guys did out on the starboard ley line. So I'm not too surprised to see them jibing for this right-hand side, because ultimately it did work for both Quantum Racing and Gladiator to have come out to the right-hand side early on that race course.
Yeah, for sure. And we've seen this early jibe and get out to the left side looking downwind work in every race today for sure. Worked quite well for Quantum Racing, I believe, in the first race and Platoon, and then in the last race I think it was a little bit closer, but definitely Allegra losing a lot by going out to the other side. Most of the boats did come low here, more towards the shore on port jibe. So bit more of a split than we've been seeing, but Azura out leading the charge out here to the left side looking downwind. Quantum and Platoon a little bit lower. Gladiator putting the pressure on there, and Allegre again electing to go out to that right side. Sled and Bernenesek following, but a little bit more of a split for sure. A little bit more of unclear what side's the best side and which jibe is the best jibe to be on right now. Usually the fleet all in the same jibe for the majority of the downwind, so things must be a little bit more open, which certainly helps the guys that are behind. Right now, looking at the virtual eye, looks like Ran Racing and Sled making a little bit of a gain on Gladiator, so it might be a little bit of boat speed there. It might also just be that the straight set and staying on starboard was a little bit better just for the first part of this downwind. Azura first to jibe here. Going to be really close between them and Platoon. It's up to Platoon whether they decide to jibe on top of Azura or if they think they should cross behind and continue off onto that left side looking downwind. If they think, they'll decide which side is better, and they'll choose to go either in front of Azura if they like the right side, and if they'll choose to duck them if they like the left side. But Quantum for sure going to be deciding which boat they want to be covering here, whether it be Platoon or Azura. I imagine Platoon's been a little bit faster on the downwind, so they might elect to go with them and sort of try to make the same decision that they're making. So if they see Platoon setting up for a jibe, they might jibe as well. Here they go, furling up that staysail, so they're going for the jibe, get in front of Azura there. Up to Platoon now to decide whether they want to go on top of Azura if they want to cross behind.
So I think Quantum has decided to jibe and cover Azura there. Platoon just taking the stern of Azura coming out a little bit further to this right-hand side of the race course. Behind them, Gladiator coming out a bit further as well. But it looks like Quantum Racing, they've extended what was a quarter boat length as they started around the top mark. Then it was about half a boat length or 1 boat length to Azura. Now it looks like at least 3 boat lengths for Quantum Racing. Platoon, of course, just having taken the stern of Azura, but they're coming about further, much further left here. They still haven't decided to jibe yet. So we'll be interesting when those two come back to the bottom marks, which is still ahead.
Yeah, not a surprising move by Platoon there. It's you know, the rest of the fleet's still on port jibe, so they're covering the rest of the guys behind them, and they're happy to take a little bit of leverage out on Azura. So you see they watch for Azura to jibe and jibe at the same time. They're going to get into another situation like that. Platoon hoping they gain just a little bit. Now again, going to be up to Azura whether they jibe in front or cross behind. You know, Gladiator just following right behind Platoon there. It's going to be close between them and Sled, as well as Ren Racing coming in from the other side. Allegre also making good gains on this downwind. Brennesek and Preveza still pretty far behind, but you know, as we've seen with those leeward mark roundings, they get close and both slow down quite a bit. Preveza and Brennesek definitely going to be back into this race by the leeward mark. So Azura deciding to jibe in front of Platoon. They either think that they're close to ley line or they like the side of Platoon that they're on right now, so they like that left side of the course a little bit better. Platoon probably going to jibe here, Quantum following Azura as well, unless Platoon thinks they can get out in front, but it looks like they're going for the jibe right now.
Yeah, they have just rolled into a jibe inside of Platoon. Platoon actually able to soak really deep, so I think Platoon might have been sailing a much higher lane, aiming aggressively at Allegre so that they then had some extra distance to sail low later. They clearly want to stay in this spot as they're coming down to the bottom marks. They do kind of have more room to jibe out, though. It's just now a danger line behind them. They've got Sled and Gladiator both causing a little bit of a wall of pressure behind them, so it's not really ideal to jibe at this moment.
Yeah, it's always a tough call. They're definitely taking a little bit of a loss on Azura right now by you know, sitting in their bad air for a little bit. They're going to sail high and get behind their line. So they're going to give up that second place, take third. It's a little bit of a conservative move there for sure. Just trying to take the line of everybody else, stay with the rest of the fleet, and you know, not take a risk and get out there lower in the box and lose more boats if that's the way that it was going to end up. So Ren Racing definitely making a pretty good gain here. And Sled, we lost Gladiator on the virtual eye, but Ran, Sled, Allegre, and Gladiator all going to be tight coming into the leeward mark here.
On board momentarily with Preveza, working hard to try and get back into this race. Very, very expensive error on the start line. Seem to be making a little bit of progress.
Yeah, so all the boats on starboard jibe now. Gladiator electing to come a little bit farther down here. They jibed on the port, so we'll probably see them go in front of Preveza and Brennesek. But the rest of the boats on starboard, I believe that's Allegre now jibing in front of, I'm not sure which boat that is. It's too far away for us to tell. But, you know, going to be some action there. Probably going to see another jibe from Gladiator here in a second. Here they go. And going to be interesting to see if they can squeak out in front and not have another boat jibe on them. But certainly 2 boats going to be going around one side and 2 boats going to be going around the other side of the gates, going on this upwind, and we'll see which side ends up winning out on the next upwind. But, you know, setting up now about halfway down the downwind, all the boats are setting up for which gate they want to go around. So you have to have a pretty good plan in mind of where you want to go on the next leg of the course and how you want to do that and where you want to be placed with all the rest of the boats, because even your decisions at the top mark to straight set or to jibe right away affects all the decisions you have to make down here now. So definitely a long thought process ahead for all these tacticians, especially when the boats are all this close and the boat handling is similar and the speeds are similar. And you can't really expect anybody to make mistakes. You just got to have the perfect positioning in order to get where you want to get on the race course. So we'll probably see Sled jibing back here on top of Gladiator. Gladiator in a tough spot now. Ran Racing and Allegre on the other side, sort of taking it away. Allegre and Sled, good gains on this downwind for them. Gladiator jibing back. They don't have much more space to go, and they're going to have to be careful not to be jibing into the bad air of Preveza or Brennesek when they jibe back on the starboard, but I'm sure they'll pick a good spot there. But definitely a lot of fights here for inside room at either mark and for clear air on the downwind. Quantum driving away now. Maybe they just want to make sure they get inside that left-hand gate looking downwind. They want that right side of the course on the upwind again, just because they saw how much that was beneficial for Azura on that upwind, even after they had such a nice start. Quantum losing quite a few meters to Azura with the leverage out they had on the right side. Gladiator drive back in front of Brennanasek. They're in a pretty good spot here with some clear air. They're far enough below sled that they're not getting affected, but far enough ahead of Preveza that they're also not seeing that bad air. So tight spot for them, but very strategic and very smart place for them to jibe. We'll see if Allegra and Ran come over and decide to jibe on top and make their life hard, but I would imagine Allegra and Ran, at least one of them, are going to be staying on that side of the course and rounding that right-hand gate looking downwind, heading towards the left side on the upwind. And then the other one most likely splitting away, rounding the opposite gate. Probably won't be a whole lot of interaction between those two boats and the rest of the fleet behind them as we come to this leeward mark if they do end up rounding 30 or 40 meters ahead of the rest of the pack like we see on Virtual Eye right now. So interesting move for Quantum to do a couple of jibes there. Jibed onto port. Maybe they just really like that shift. Looked like they had a great angle on port for a second, and they have extended quite a bit in the distance of lead that they have. But definitely adding in an extra maneuver by not just staying on starboard until the ley line's there. So maybe they actually want that left-hand gate looking upwind, the left-hand side looking upwind. We're not sure what it'll look like, but to minimize maneuvers, that's the way that they're looking. So wouldn't be too surprised to see them do something similar to what Brennanasek did previously, and round that gate, sail for about a minute, and then tack back onto port and cover the fleet out to the right.
Just avoid the blanket effect of the boats coming in.
I think as they come in here, Quantum Racing, they did jibe early to then set up to go to this left-hand mark. I wasn't sure if they were jibing early to set up to go straight to the right mark, but I think as they got down here, the left-hand mark, which would be a left turn to the right side of the race course, it looks advantaged only by about a quarter of a boat length, half a boat length, but as you said, Azura gained on the right early on that first upwind. Quantum was happy to follow into the right. I think everyone knows the right has been a strong side of the course all day today, so no surprise, Quantum Racing leading this race, come around the bottom mark, choosing the right-hand side. Azura, the Italian team, coming around in second, choosing the right-hand side as well. And in third place, Platoon, who had gained at the very top from the left, the German team deciding to go left. That's the top three for now, while the rest gets very, very tight. Fourth place, it looks like at the moment, would be Allegre, but they just dropped their spinnaker very, very early. They're driving to go around the right mark, following Platoon to that left-hand side of the race course. So dropping their kite really early allowed Gladiator to come back into the mix for fourth here. Almost simultaneous Gladiator for the right-hand side, coming up the right-hand side of the race course, just outside of Gladiator's sled, the white boat, who was such a dominant force on the race course yesterday. And then behind them, again, a really tight battle for three boats. In fact, Brennanasek just sneaking in on the inside of sled. Huge gains for Brennanasek there. While they were much further behind sled, they are now ahead. And on the far side, rounding to the right, going to the left, Ron Racing just ahead of Preveza. But they are all so close, those last five boats. They really could make big gains from being last, Preveza, to possibly even being fifth or fourth at the next mark.
Yeah, it's like getting caught a little bit too fast around the stern of Gladiator and have had to sail a very low mode here, so they're going to have lost quite a bit on that leeward mark rounding, even though they did gain some on the downwind. Gladiator making it out pretty well, so great jibe placing for them on the ley lines there. Interesting, tough for them to get into the clear air that they had, but they put it in a jibe right in the right spot, so they had some nice breeze. Made it down to the getting inside at the mark there. Even though some of those boats were 25, 30 meters ahead. So very good, very smart for them to be able to work their way into being able to round inside and ahead of that pack that they really looked like they were going to be behind. Quantum making good gains, extending their lead just a little bit. Interesting that Azura elected to tack right away after the mark. Maybe they're a little bit more concerned about Platoon than they are about Quantum, or maybe they just didn't have a great rounding and were in the bad air of Quantum. But like you said, tight racing behind the first three boats, so it'll be really interesting to see what they elect to do, if they all decide to come towards that right side or if they decide to split a little bit more and take a little bit more risk. But Preveza and Brnenacek definitely happy. As we said, you never can count people out in this race course. With all the tight roundings and things like that, boats definitely slowing down here and there, and the boats that are behind that don't have to be involved in those battles catching up quite a bit. So see Gladiator sled still on port tack. Preveza tacked over. Brnenacek on port as well. I believe Allegre just tacked and ran still on starboard. Quantum crossing, probably going to see them tack pretty soon, either in front of Azura. They might cross just a little bit and get a little bit more in between them and Platoon. But I'd be very surprised to see them continue on starboard. You should see them tacking here pretty soon. Allegre back on port. Ran probably coming back to port pretty soon as well. Gladiator and sled looking like they're going to make some pretty good gains out there on the right side. There you go with Quantum tacking there, back onto port, covering Azura and Platoon on this upwind. Azura and Platoon a little bit closer, but Quantum going to be able to extend their lead here as they stay out of those fights. They don't have to attack because of anybody else. They're going to be able to choose exactly where they want to go. And being able to put a little bit of hurt on whichever boat they decide they want to have farther back in the pack. But it's not a great choice for them, either Azura or Platoon. They certainly wish that one of those guys was farther back in the pack. Especially for the overall series. But Azura actually taking a nice little hitch up and tacking in front of Platoon, making Platoon probably tack away here. So getting into some early fights for them is a little bit risky, especially with Gladiator and sled going so far out leveraged to that right side, which has worked very well for them. Gladiator in a great mode right now. Looks like they're going pretty fast, a little bit higher than the rest of the boats in the same speed. So definitely gaining. The virtual eye has a little bit, it doesn't look like it's got the distances quite right. But Gladiator looking pretty fast and going out to the correct side of this race course, the one that has paid in the past. So interesting for Azura and Platoon to be getting in those fights. Might lose a place to Gladiator here. Jen, it looks like it's picked up a couple of knots out there. What do you think?
Yeah, unfortunately for us, we can't quite see them. We've got sled just in front of us, between us and basically the whole rest of the pack. So in front of sled, I can see Gladiator and I can see Quantum Racing. Quantum Racing still looking dominant from the middle of the race course. Definitely out on the right-hand side, really solid breeze that we are driving into. Really solid pressure all the way up to the weather mark. So I'm not surprised at all to see a lot of the fleet on port tack headed out this way. I think, again, it's looking like a really strong side to be on. And these two boats here, at least Gladiator and sled, looking to be set up really nicely for these conditions. I mean, it's much shorter swell than we had yesterday. So the boat's just trucking along with some pace, and I think they're probably going to be making some gains here.
And taking a quick look at the virtual. Azura and Platoon making, a couple attacks out there, so they're now settled in a little bit more on port tack. All the boats just sort of sending it out to that right side. Platoon tacking on Allegre. You can see Allegre taking a nice little hitch out on starboard and coming back on port. So all the boats, again, on port tack, driving out to that right side. That's definitely where they want to be. That's definitely where they think the gains are going to be made. So look to see sort of Gladiator and sled make some good gains on Azura and Platoon distance-wise. Preveza and Brnenacek definitely getting back into this race for on the right side. Might be in a good spot to pass either Ren or Allegre on that other side there. So good for them to be able to get back into it.
The other good news, I think, Preveza just underneath Brnenacek coming out to this side. Looks like they have made big gains as well. I can't see who those two boats are. Far bottom left of the race course. My guess is that one is Ron Racing and possibly the other Allegre, but I think probably both Preveza and Brnenacek will have gained at least on those two guys because they're in their own little fight, in their own little battle up here, but they're a lot closer to sled and Gladiator than they were before.
It looks like the breeze is up quite nicely. Which was pretty much as forecasted. The breeze would strengthen later on in the afternoon.
Yeah, I think maybe it was just a tiny bit later than our forecast because it wasn't so great in the last race, but it's beautiful now. It's solidly probably 11, maybe 12 knots here, and again, everyone hiking full hard on all the boats. Actually, we're just seeing the sewer guy on Gladiator coming up from having packed the kite, so he's just run out to the side and instantly doubled over form. In fact, you can see he's just hiking that much harder that you really can't see his back at all, whereas you can see slightly the backs of everyone else. Maybe they're a little sick of being doubled over as we're halfway up this upwind here.
Yeah, Gladiator looking like they've made some great gains on Azura and Platoon out there on the left side. Sled as well with that, didn't have a great mark rounding, but decided instead of tacking away from Gladiator, they were going to go low and try to make it out to the right side, and it looks like that might be working out for them as they make a little bit more gains on Prvetsa and Brnenicek there, as it does look like there's either a little bit more wind on the right side or they're just slowly getting into a little bit more of a right phase. So again, will be a decision to see when they tack. I imagine that Quantum and Gladiator will be leading the way onto starboard tack. Quantum maybe tacking a little bit early just to be conservative. Gladiator basically has a choice of coming across a little bit early if they think they've made a gain on Platoon or Azura, or waiting all the way until the ley line to see if they can get maximum right shift. So it sort of depends on what they're seeing on the boat there. If they decide to tack a little bit early, they're either going to hope that Azura and Platoon will cross them and not tack on their air, or they're going to hope that they can get a piece of them and make them start fighting with each other and be able to tack back away and get to that ley line and start sailing fast. So going to be interesting as the tactical calls move up here on this next little bit of the race course here.
We are getting towards this ley line call. I think soon we'll probably see the first boat start to tack in. I'm not sure if it'll be Sled who just decides to initiate it, get it out of the way, and either have Gladiator face them and come back, or whether we'll see Gladiator actually hit the ley lines or start to hit the ley lines first and be them themselves. I would probably think we'll see Sled go first. They do know Gladiator's probably going to hit them, so they might as well just get it out of the way early so they don't end up overstanding by a mile. Otherwise, if they go late and Gladiator hits them, they have to do an extra double tack and really be well overstood. But we'll have to see as they come out here.
Yeah, so Gladiator, now we've got the virtual eye is a little bit more updated now. Gladiator making great gains on Azura and Platoon, but not quite far enough ahead to be able to come back and get a piece of them, I don't think, when they tack back on the starboard. So might see them go a little bit early just so they have that space to play with. They're able to tack back again onto the ley line. So here they go tacking now. Probably going to hope that the two boats, that Azura and Platoon, cross them and don't tack on their breeze. But if they do, they have given themselves a little bit of room to do a double tack there and not overlay by too much. But Sled going to follow suit probably here pretty soon. Tough call for Brnenicek and Prvetsa to decide if they want to go past those boats or if they want to try and tack underneath and go for that left-hand top part of the race course that's made some gains for some boats on occasion and also has not worked. So it's sort of a risky move for them. So Prvetsa here deciding to tack underneath the line of Gladiator. Brnenicek, I would predict they're going to face them if they can. I can't quite see the angles here, but I think the best move for them would be to go in front of Prvetsa there. Azura and Platoon is still trucking along on port. Quantum is tacked over now in front of the rest of the fleet. I think if Azura and Platoon duck them, then they'll probably tack back on the port unless they think they're on ley line. But I think Azura and Platoon will probably try to tack in front of Gladiator. Certainly Azura trying to push back the boats around them is the best move for them. And then Ren Racing and Allegra definitely losing a little bit by going out to that left side, although it does look on the virtual like they got lifted most of the time out there. Maybe there's a little bit less breeze on that side, but so we'll see. Again, decisions for them. They can either try to stay on that left side, hope the rest of the boats get in some fights and they can make some gains there, or they'll just come into the line of boats there, start fighting for their positions and hope they can make some gains on the downwind.
So in the meantime, the top of the table is the three boats which are fighting for the Circuit Championship. Quantum, Azura and Platoon. I think Platoon and Azura were 1 point apart going into this race. It's interesting, Jen, how they always seem to be together in the fighting in the same pack.
It's so funny, isn't it? I mean, if one of them has a bad race, the chances are the other one's also deep in the pack. Whereas if one of them has a good race, like this Quantum winning, the chances are often that Azura is right behind. And I'm not sure. I don't think it's that they're making the same tactical calls. I mean, often one's on the left and one's on the right. They just end up together at points in the race. And maybe that's just because they're keeping their eyes out for each other, and then somewhere up the second or somewhere up the first beat, they sort of start to make similar decisions. But yeah, they definitely end up stuck like glue, both on the scores overall and on the scores in a day. And I think it's good to finally see the two of them here actually stamping their assertion on this regatta, because so far, while the two of them have been tied at the leaderboard at the top of the series along with Platoon, they haven't really had a great regatta here. They've just been consistently average. As Terry says, he likes to be fourth place or better, but we haven't really seen them. We haven't seen Quantum take a race win yet.
No, Quantum's best score so far was in race 5 with their second, but otherwise it's been 4-4, 6-5, 5-8.
Yeah, so definitely best race of the regatta for Quantum so far. They've shown their pace for sure as they've extended that lead that they've had, although not quite as much as some of the other boats have in the past couple of races, but I think that just has a little bit more to do with the fact that there is more breeze now and the boats are going to be more similar on speeds, and boat handling maneuvers don't quite cost as much on the upwinds and downwinds as they might in the light air. So it looks like Azura and Quantum are on ley line there. Platoon electing to go a little bit to the left side, taking that risk again. If there is a right shift, then they could be in trouble, but if not,
it seemed to pay for them last time though, didn't it? Coming in from the left.
Yeah, so it worked out for them last time. I think they were just far enough ahead of everybody that it worked out, but this time maybe not so much. Looks like the virtual has Gladiator getting ahead of them now, a little bit more pressure on the right, it looks like. And Platoon going to have a tough time coming back with another tack. They have to do one more tack than the rest of the fleet if they are on ley line. So they're going to have a tough time fitting in there without fouling, or even if they do get in there, then they're still going to have a lot of pressure on them from the boats behind on the downwind. They're going to have to execute that set perfectly in order to not get past.
I'm not sure if you guys can see it there, but Ron Racing just made it out from the left-hand corner all the way across and then planted a lee bow on sled, but they kind of struggled to maintain their speed on the lee bow. I think they had a really tough set of waves, and they were trying to stay high and speed build high. And they've I think are going to hold off. But I'm not quite sure. They might get rolled by sled, which would be a huge disaster, because they could go from somewhere like possibly 4th, where they currently are, to maybe something like 6th or 7th if they just can't hold off that place.
Yeah, definitely a risky call for them. Not having a great tack puts them in a little bit of bad air from Azura, so you can see on the virtual eye, it doesn't look like they're doing great against sled, so they might have to see them tack twice more.
In fact, they did just tack, yeah. They tack out, though, and sled follows, so they're both tacking, clearly, because they weren't on the ley line anyway, so they're both ducking Quantum there. They're both ducking Gladiator there, sailing out to the ley line. They'll both plant on Brunennesec, so it might give Brunennesec a little bit of a tough issue to come into the top mark. All of those boats much further overstood than Quantum Racing here. Quantum Racing now about 5 boat lengths from the weather mark, and while it doesn't look like they are laying easily, I think they can... no, they're going to have to tack twice.
Yeah,
it's like 2 boat length advantage.
Looks like they're going to have to tack twice. Gladiator probably the closest to ley line here, maybe just under, actually. They seem to have gotten this left shift again. It looked at the virtual eye like they were all going to make the mark here, and then as they come up to the top, maybe just a little bit lighter breeze or maybe a little bit of a left shift. And what a lot of the navigators thought was ley line ended up not quite being ley line. So going to be tough for everyone to call those shots perfectly. Azura going to have to tack back. Maybe going to be close to Gladiator. I expect them to go right on top of Platoon here. So there they go, attacking on Platoon. We'll see how close they are to Gladiator. I think they're going to be able to get in front of Gladiator there. And if Gladiator is on ley line, they'll stay. But Platoon definitely losing by choosing to go down to that left side. So if Gladiator is not making this mark, then they're going to have a tough time. Azura planting it right on top of them, not deciding to go in front. So Gladiator definitely thin on ley line. Going to be tough for them to make it around that mark without going too slow. So Platoon putting on the pressure behind. Good for them not to lose more than a couple of boat lengths.
So talk us around the mark, Jen.
At the top mark here, it is Quantum Racing extending their lead up to about 5 boat lengths, just going with the kite up now at the offset mark, while the second place boat, Azura, the Italian team, only just getting around the top mark, the weather mark. And as you were saying, Gladiator there squeezing their way into 3rd place. The right-hand side showing to be better form than the left-hand side, which didn't quite work for Platoon, who are now rounding in 4th position there. Close behind, though, into that 4th position. And then in 5th, a very tight battle still. It's been a tight battle for about the last 2 minutes between Sled, the white boat, and the darkest boat in the fleet, the black boat, Ron Racing. I think Ron Racing just overstood a little too much. They're giving up some distance there to Sled. So Sled rounding in 5th place. Behind them, Provezza, making some moves up the race course, making some moves up the fleet in that upwind there, going from what was last at the bottom marks, I think, to 6th, 7th position there. Behind them, Brunennesec. And it is hard to see, but it's got to be Allegre in 9th, just on the outside of Brunennesec. But I think Quantum Racing well in the lead, going for a jibe here, just a protective jibe against the pack behind them, while everyone else quite condensed between 2nd to 9th place.
Indeed, so at the moment shaping up for a fabulous finale tomorrow. Really nothing in it. Could be anybody's regatta. And when as I said earlier, when you consider the margins in the last 2 years that we've been here going into the final day, what a finale, what a Super Series final.
Just exceptional, the level of racing that's been shown here, and the level of tight, condensed racing as well. I mean, yeah, anyone from 7 boats still able to win this regatta, although I think it has been helpful for Preveza, the wonderful day that they've had so far today. Even just 5 points ahead of the fleet in the last race, allowing them to have a deeper race here, but still well be in contention with the rest of the guys.
Absolutely. I mean, another place would make all the difference for Preveza going into the final day. At the moment, Preveza leading on 33 points or 32 points. Then Platoon 33, Azura 34, Ran Racing 35, Quantum 35, Sled 36, then Brenenisek 44, 51 and 59.
You know, I think possibly here, Preveza, the only team leading the back and not jibing, this could be gains to them. It does look like we have a little tent effect here on what is the right side looking upwind, the left-hand side looking downwind. Ron racing from the back, Sled from the back, both blanketing Platoon just in front of them. Gladiator in the middle of the course, maybe getting clear air, but I think for Preveza, perhaps heading out straight, not jibing early, might help just to stay with their breeze clear from the rest of these guys. And Azura, I hadn't even seen Azura underneath Platoon there. I do think Azura has clear air to windward of Platoon's line, forward of Platoon's line, but still, all the breeze that's coming down the race course is going to be trying to lift over this pack of TP52s here, because there's 5 of them very closely condensed, and I think that allows the guys out on the opposite side of the race course to just stretch their legs a little bit more.
Yeah, Quantum and Azura definitely pretty good lead here on the downwind. Probably see them sail pretty conservatively, but Platoon in a risky spot with Sled and Ran Racing, you know, coming up close to them. Going to be interesting to see if they decide to jibe early, or if they try to stay out in front there. The Gladiator in the middle of the course, not really sure how they're going. It looks like on the virtual eye they have lost a few meters to Platoon. Platoon just ahead of them now by a couple of meters. But Preveza definitely making some gains out there. They're gonna, the more that Sled and Ran Racing decide to mess around with each other, the more that Preveza is going to gain on them. So Preveza in a strong spot to make some gains here if things work out for them.
This is the kind of shot in the arm that Quantum Racing want going into the final day. Terry Hutchison always says that their target is just to be in contention, to give themselves a fighting chance of a win, and a win in this race would certainly put them in touch with the leaders, and anything can happen on the final day.
That Gladiator just like they're sailing a little bit higher of an angle right now. Looks like they might be in a tiny bit less pressure than that group closer to us on the screen here. So Platoon, Sled, and Ran Racing out there, looks like they might have just a little bit more pressure than the guys on the other side of the course.
I think Gladiator just really not benefiting from the spot where they are with 4 boats out to windward of them, blocking them in the wind. I think that's a really difficult position to maintain on this race course. I'm not sure if
just looking
it would be better for them to jibe out or not.
Just great seeing the drone shot, the high shot. You can see the little bit more pressure on the right as we look upwind.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's the side that's worked out all day long, essentially, at least on the upwinds, if not also on the downwinds.
But it's great just to see it from a high angle. You can just see the darker water.
Yeah, Gladiator falling behind quite a bit. Sled and Ran making good gains out there on that side. Extending a little bit on Preveza over on the other side of the race course. Looks like just a little bit more pressure there maybe, or a beneficial shift for them. Quantum also extending their lead by quite a bit, up there at 200 meters now. Pretty big lead for them as well. Azura in second, big lead on third place for them. So they're going to be pretty far ahead of the rest of the fleet, not looking to be involved in too many of the fights for the positions at the finish line. But for sure, we're going to have a nice tight battle between 4 boats here in Gladiator, Platoon, Sled, Privetza, actually 5 boats now in Ran Racing as well. So Privetza definitely making gains on that side over there, but good right shift it looks like on a virtual eye, so not going to see a whole lot of boats sailing on starboard tack right now.
So is that seesaws just now for the regatta lead, whether it's going to be Privetza or whether Privetza can hang on to the regatta lead. It's all about this the difference between 6th and 7th down this run. Just looking again, Privetza as it stands 32 points versus Platoon. Platoon seesawing between 3rd and 4th, and Privetza seesawing between 7th and 6th. So really, really high tension final.
So Platoon deciding to drive over here, maybe feeling the pressure of Sled and Ran in the back there. So Gladiator going to have a decision to make whether they want to try and jibe here in front of Platoon or if they want to cross behind. But Platoon definitely driving away from those other 2 boats. They must have been gaining quite a bit on them.
So Azura then going quite nicely in 2nd place. A little bit of a gust for them, a bit of acceleration towards the finish line. Making any impression at all in Quantum, Jen?
No, not that I can see. I mean, they haven't even given themselves leverage on Quantum's line either.
Yeah.
They basically just jibed directly astern of Quantum, about 6-7 boat lengths back. So a difficult task here for them to pass Quantum in any way, but they are very well placed on the fleet behind. So I think Azura ensuring the fact that they'll get 2nd place in this race.
Yeah, I definitely won't be unhappy with that result, the 2nd place, and we saw them at 3rd place earlier in the day today, even after such a horrible start that they had. So, been a good day for Azura, especially after yesterday. It was not a great day for them, but they've been sailing smart. They've been using that speed and boat handling that they're used to using, and they've been picking their way back to the fleet really well. So, great day for them on the water today.
I think still the moves are in the back of the pack. It's Brennensek coming back through. I actually can't see the white kite as well on port tack coming through, just about to jibe on Gladiator. Is that?
That's Privetza.
Yeah, it looks Privetza. And maybe they've made a small gain there, jibing on Gladiator's line on their breeze, but slightly astern.
Yeah, so Privetza driving on Gladiator, but it looks like they might not be quite enough in front to be really affecting the breeze. But Platoon making a good gain on Gladiator. Gladiator deciding to go and drive in front of Sled, just affect their breeze just a little bit there, trying to protect the lead that they have. So definitely the fight will be between Privetza, Sled, and Ran will be the closest boats here, and Gladiator just in front of them now. If they're close to ley line, then Gladiator will be able to stay in front if they don't end up in the bad area of Privetza, but definitely going to be close between all those boats at the finish line. We can see now in virtual, it looks like they're pretty close to lay, but it looks like a little bit more time on port, at least for some of the boats. Definitely for Privetza, Brennensek, Platoon. Quantum and Azura may be laying the finish line pretty close. Might have to soak a little bit at the end there. But Quantum in a good spot on Sled and Ran to keep their lead. Ran look like they are, or Sled looking like they are sailing a little bit of a high mode just to get out of the bad air of Quantum and stay ahead of Privetza. Platoon making nice gains now ahead, so good spot for them to jibe away from that pack of Sled and Ran early on and get out ahead and clear air there and just be able to go fast while the rest of the guys behind them fight it out. pretty good aerial shot here. Now we see that, you know, a beautiful day out here in Palma. No clouds in the sky, nice and sunny. There's plenty of people on the beach near here by the studio. It's a great day out there. I'm sure those guys are enjoying it on the water. It's a perfect temperature, Mediterranean with some nice water temperature, and as the breeze comes in, cools off just enough to be very comfortable. We saw just a shot earlier of the guys on Quantum Racing on board there. It looked pretty relaxed and pretty happy, so I think that, you know, owner Doug DeVos there has been pretty ecstatic all week. He's come up to me a couple of times and said hi. And he just looks like he's always got a smile on his face, and he just loves being here, as I'm sure the rest of the guys that are sailing as well as the owners do. They really love it here. The 52 racing is obviously super close and really, really fun, especially in great venues like Palma de Mallorca here, you know, in Puerto. So we see lots of smiling faces, lots of relaxation, lots of good times here in Palma.
So what will this, Jen? What will this win mean for Quantum Racing going into the final day? A big psychological boost.
Yeah, we've seen how important momentum here is in this regatta as well. I mean, for yesterday, for sled, to be able to take 2 race wins was amazing. They didn't really carry the momentum in this morning, but earlier in the week, Ron Racing had carried momentum from the first day to the second, and I think they are a very psychological team, especially Terry Hutchinson as well. He does get in his own mind a little bit, and I think to them, to show that they can win a race from the get-go, it is going to be a really good moment for their team. It is going to allow them to come in with a little breath of fresh air as they get ashore and as they look into the final day, both looking at the scores here in this regatta and looking at the scores overall. Quantum Racing taking the win. They're going to be happy.
Indeed, we just saw Terry there thanking Ian Moore, just little pat in the back, pat in the hand, and Quantum Racing then winning race number 8. 2 races tomorrow. Big Friday finale. And then Azura coming through in second, Jen.
Yeah, behind Quantum Racing, Azura here just trying not to collapse their spinnaker right on the end as they bear away to the finish line. The Italian team of Azura, they're often stuck like glue to Quantum Racing. I think in this case, you'd be happy to be stuck to them like glue if you're first and second across the line. It'll move them both up a little bit overall on the regatta for this regatta scores. Then coming in third is still a very tight battle. I think the winners of this battle will probably easily be Platoon, the German team. I think that might shoot Platoon to the top of the leaderboard depending on how Preveza finishes up this race. Yes, Platoon just bringing a tiny puff of pressure down with them and being able to surf one of these waves in. They had a great day. They've had a great, very consistent regatta, as John Kostecki often does. They haven't been winning off the start lines, but they've been working their way through the fleet, and Platoon getting another podium finish there, crossing the line for third place on this third race of the day. That'll make that team happy. Now in fourth, we thought this was going to be a close battle, but it is bound number 4 emerging from the battle, emerging from the mix. Bound number 4, let's get Gladiator across the line in fourth, because behind them it is heating up between 9th place all the way up to 5th place. I thought it was going to be outside, maybe Preveza. They had jibed on top of Brunelesek. Now Preveza trying to come through while Sled's driving on top of them. I think Preveza pulling it through, but in fact on the inside, Rand Racing, the black boat, they might even be able to pull off all of the fleet going from 9th to 5th. I can't tell the bowsprits there. I think maybe it goes to Preveza on the inside. Maybe it goes to Round Racing on our side, or maybe it goes to Sled right in the middle. I don't know. Behind them, Brunelesek in 8th, and behind them, unfortunately, again, Allegre in 9th.
Well, the virtual has Preveza, then Ran, then Sled. But I think we'll have to wait and hear that one from Maria. But incredibly close finish, really nothing in it. And it's really down to the last meters of the last run.
Yeah, we've seen close finishes like that in almost every race of the regatta so far. So clearly, boats going very similar in speeds. You know, very high level, similar level of crew work on all these boats. So it's really great to see that, especially with the you know, the owner drivers here. We got a whole lot of owner drivers that all seem to be sailing the boats at a very, very high level. So it's really great to see that. But yeah, it was an extremely close finish there between Preveza, Ran, and Sled. For sure, we saw something similar to that in the last race, and Brunelesek actually ended up getting a penalty for not giving enough room, but I think it looked like everything was clean there, no protest flags. But definitely some action, definitely some excitement. You know, it's all comes down to you know, 1-2 feet that matters, 2 points, 3 points at the end of the race, and it really makes you think when you're out there.
So we're hearing now Maria Terreo, she went to Provezza, so I think that was a question whether they had been the boat on the inside most to get that win, and I did hear her just call that they'd gotten that win, which I think, if that's right, Andy, I think keeps them at the top of the leaderboard overall.
Sorry, tell me again, Provezza got what?
Fifth.
Provezza got the 5th.
Yeah, that would keep them 3 points ahead of Platoon then, according to my very poor mathematics. Provezza on 30, I think, then Platoon on 33, and then Azura and Ran Racing on 34. And Quantum on 35, so really very, very close.
Yeah, so we have the projected points table up on the virtual eye right now. Looks like 30 to Provezza, 33 to Platoon, 34 for Azura, and 35 for Ran and Quantum, and then 38 for Sled. So still extremely close with only 2 races left in this regatta. 8 points between 1st and 6th place, so really not much has changed. And you know, in a 9-boat fleet with 2 races left, 8 points can be very easy to catch up, and there are, you know, 5 boats in between there, so still anybody's regatta for sure. Platoon has been very fast on the downwinds. We saw them again catch another boat on this last downwind. Provezza have been very, very consistent throughout the regatta with only 1, you know, bad race in that 7th, maybe the 6th as well, but certainly been consistent. Platoon very consistent as well. Azura more up and down the board, but some very great finishes in there as well. So it could be anybody's game going into the last day here.
Indeed, Jen, what are your thoughts on tomorrow then?
Well, I think, considering what we just saw in that final race, I mean, from 5th to 9th, we basically couldn't call it. It goes to show you can never give up. If we remember that Provezza was over early, then they fouled, and they got back up from 9th to 5th, honestly, in the last, what was that, the last 4 boat links to the finish line. And I think that's just absolutely testament to how incredible the racing here has been, how tight it has been, and how tight it is between, I mean, we could say 7 boats because it's 7 boats that are really mathematically still in the race, but all 9 of these boats have just sailed phenomenal racing, and I think that is what we take away going into tomorrow, that we can absolutely not really make any predictions based on who's going to win. I think it's just going to be who's able to perform tomorrow on the day.
That's right. I mean, I think one of the points that we've seen is that the starts have been generally quite messy certainly over the last couple of days. There's not been your kind of normal lineup. There's been boats closed out at the committee boat end of the line, I think, in 2 or 3 races, and that's really had an impact. It's not been the kind of traditional lineup. If you can get off the line well, then that really has made the difference. There have been several times we've seen 2 or 3 boats closed out at the windward end of the line. We've seen penalties. I think we've seen more penalties in the last 3 or 4 days. And I think that's indicative of how close it is, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as well, we've seen, I mean, the days that we saw teams really dominant, we saw Sled really dominant yesterday off 2 starts where they could then play the side they wanted. And we saw Ran Racing really dominant the day they got 2 seconds, where they had 2 great starts at the pin and they got the side that they wanted, the left side. But other than that, when teams are making mistakes, when they're over early like Azura was or like Provezza was, when they're fouling and they're getting back into the race like Quantum Racing or Platoon, I think that is where we really see them shine, when they're moving up the fleet from very deep to save those points. I mean, you want to say they're saving them because they're not actually then scoring what could have been a really deep race. And I think we spoke about the other day with Azura when Vasco Voscoto came in and they'd won a race, but they'd gotten 6th as well. And he was so excited about the 6th because they hadn't been 9th. You know, he was beaming that they had just kind of put less points on the board than they possibly could have. And I think we've just got to see tomorrow. Of course, you got to keep the points to the minimum. I bet we'll see them fight a tiny bit harder on the start line, because ultimately it's going to be whoever does well on the day tomorrow does well for the regatta. Good.
And Nick, what are your thoughts on tomorrow?
Yeah, well, I think that Provezza is actually in a pretty great place to take this regatta, just because
you think?
Yeah, well, because Platoon and Azura and Quantum are all going to be fighting for the overall series, and they're going to be leaving Provezza alone just a little bit. So it might be not so hard of a task for them to close it out tomorrow. But at the same time, we might see Ran or Sled come back into the mix here. So going to see 2 different battles, basically one for the regatta, one for the series overall. So, you know,
That's
definitely.
I think the question, as much as anything, is how much you risk the regatta and possibly compromise the overall circuit championship. And I think that's as much as anything which the top 3 or 4 teams, so Quantum, Azura and Platoon, will be focusing on tomorrow. It'll be low risk wherever possible. That may, as you say, Nick, open the door for Preveza. Preveza have been in this position before, and they really need to go and sail exceptionally clean tomorrow. Anyway, there's the regatta standings after 8 races, just 2 to go. Preveza, Ergan Imri's team representing Turkey, in the lead on 30 points. Then Platoon, a really solid day, 4.43 today, in second place on 33. Then Azura, pretty decent day overall, 10 points from the day. You can't complain about that over 3 races. So 34 points for them. Quantum Racing coming back with that win in the third race, up to 4th and only 5 points off the lead. Ran Racing, as Nick said, not far off the lead as well, only 6 points adrift. Sled only 7. Brennensek a little bit up and down, that race win, and then a 9 and an 8. Then they're in 43. Gladiator 52 and Allegre on 60 points. So really everything to play for tomorrow. So anyway, Nick, you've enjoyed your time in the commentary box then, have you?
Yeah, you know, it's great. You know, I at home, my friends and I, we watch this stuff anyways, and we do the same thing and talk about it. So it's definitely nice to be up here with all the equipment and, you know, being on TV and everything. It's the same thing that we do at home, just happens to be in the studio. So it's definitely been a good time.
Good for you. So your money's on Preveza, is it?
Yeah, I think they're going to have a pretty good chance. You know, they definitely had a shot at it last regatta, and, you know, boat breakdown is not a great way to end up not winning the regatta. So I think they're going to come out with very fiery tomorrow and really hoping to win this event.
Indeed. Well, I'm going to go with you on that. When I said at the beginning of the week that I quite fancied Preveza. Preveza have been so close so far at a couple of regattas this season. So join us again tomorrow for the big Friday finale in the 52 Super Series here in Puerto Portals. It could be anybody's regatta. It's going to be fantastic. Join us then.